predominantly to people that are owning a home and may want to know if they have indications of rodents. This is from a house that I did this morning. And these are the most common places where I will be clued in as to whether or not the home is going to likely have, and then whether or not it has rodents, at least in the past. But more often than not, I can tell pretty quickly whether or not it's a current thing or not. So check these areas. And if you have any indications of rodents in these areas, you probably, at the very least, have had them in the past, if not currently. One of the most common ways that rodents will get into crawl spaces underneath houses is through the foundation vent screens, particularly when there are holes or perforations in them to accommodate cables, because a lot of times they won't get filled. So whenever I see this, I always try to get down and look, and you see that right there. Guaranteed that you have rodents that will go in through that. So any holes like that you have on your house and any of your foundation vent screens, if you have those, in all likelihood you are getting rodents that will go into the crawl space through those spots. Once I'm done with the outside, which I always do first, I'm going to then go into the garage. And once I'm in the garage, there will be other things that I'm looking for that are just part of my normal process, part of the normal inspection, but will also often have further indications of rodents. So once I got into the garage, as you'll see, I was able to find those other typical signs. If you have a house that has a furnace and or a water heater in a garage, and you want to kind of do some checking for yourself as to whether or not you might have some indications of mice, sometimes it might be like some seeds, or maybe it's some droppings. Really good place to check is around a furnace, particularly if you have a crawl space, and then anytime there's a water heater. They love water heaters. Not exactly sure why. I just know it's a thing. Same thing with the furnace. So these areas, wherever there will be like this opening that goes into a crawl space, look for any signs of activity there. Oh, there's a trap there. Look for signs. Did not actually know this before I got over here, so this is funny. Remember what I said about seeds? Seeds. So it's like bird seed. These are just really, really common areas. Now, if you want to be technical, looking for and commenting upon rodents is beyond every standards of practice that I'm aware of. That would be one of the many areas where I like to under-promise and over-deliver. I'm gonna see signs of rodents every day. I might as well mention it. So I do. But excellent example of rodents. Now, if you have this, where you've got daylight gaps on the sides of your garage doors, you will almost always have some sort of signs of rodents in a garage. Because what's happening is they're walking along the outside, hugging up a wall, they find a spot, oh, that area, I can feel a little bit of warmth, and they're coming in and going out. So, you know, if you've got perfectly good weather stripping on the bottoms of your garage doors, is it going to absolutely prevent rodents from getting in? No. We already know, having been on the outside a little bit ago, that you're gonna get rodents going into the crawl space. And when they get into the crawl space, if you've got a furnace like this, where it's got an opening going into the crawl space, you will almost always have some indications. That's why you'll often find people coming in afterwards and filling it. Sometimes you'll see like expandable foam like that, or you'll see like steel wool or whatnot stuffed into it. But you will usually, you know, often find signs of rodent activity in this area. And if you have that and that, it's almost a guaranteed at that point. So if you see anything like this, or if you have a water heater and a furnace in a garage, those would be really good spots to look for indications of rodents, droppings, seeds, etc. Now for a bonus story. So one time, this was probably 17 years ago or so, I'm doing an inspection in downtown Vancouver. Downtown Vancouver, Washington-ish, close to that area. And the crawl space was accessible from the outside. When I opened the crawl space access, I was immediately hit by an overwhelming smell. And I had no idea what it was. But I'm pretty insistent on getting things done to the degree that I can. I will push things. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to get in there, or at least to be able to see something. So I double masked up and put a bandana around my nose and got in. And I didn't get very far because the next thing that I saw was in the entire ceiling of the crawl space, so underneath the first floor, every metal junction box that was in there, the insulation throughout was not just wet, but dripping, actively dripping everywhere inside. You could see it, you could hear it dripping and landing on the vapor barrier. And everywhere on the vapor barrier, it looked like, and what looked like on the ceiling was oil. That's what it looked like, but it certainly did not smell like that. And it became pretty clear very quickly that there was a very serious rodent infestation in this house. Well, needless to say, I might, deal with a smell, but I'm not going to crawl through dripping rodent urine, which is what it was. They had a company who is probably the most tenured pest control company in Clark County go out to the home. And I remember checking back in because I eventually did a repair verification, a reinspection of the crawl space. And that company that has been around for a very long time said that it was the most significant rodent infestation on a residential property that they had ever seen. It was that bad. To remedy this property, among the other things that they did on the inside of the building, the crawl space was completely gutted. All of the vapor barrier on the ground, all of the insulation, everything was completely removed. So a few weeks later, I went out to the home and it was brand new. So that was nice to crawl in. Apparently, sadly, the owner had died in that property and they didn't know for a while, and he was kind of a hoarder as well. And then his dog died in the house, and yeah, it was kind of a sad situation. So there's that. Rodent issues, whether they're that extreme, obviously, or the more common things that I saw this morning, those are fixable. We don't run into a lot of non-fixable issues. And the biggest thing that I think that people should do, and I do it as well, is wood traps, unless you have a real true one-off thing, or sticky traps or decon, they just ultimately don't work very well in the long run, or you just frustrate yourself. I honestly and truly think that it is worthwhile to get on a quarterly treatment plan. The company that I use and my dad uses is Point Pest Control, Pointe. They more or less all do the same thing, and they're going to cost relatively close to each other. And they deal with rodents and wood destroying insects, and just generally for insects per se. So once I started doing that on my own home, and my dad on his house and their property, night and day with insects as well. So if you're looking for rodents, those are the most common places to find them, at least until you go into like a crawl space, which is the most common place to find them. And if you plan on dealing with them, you know, obviously there's things that you can do yourself. But if you really have, you know, an issue where you're constantly running into rodents on an ongoing basis, it's easier just to deal with it or have a pest control company deal with it on a quarterly basis. Bonus, you're going to also be dealing with insects as well.